The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of this station, JVC Broadcasting Management, or its sponsors.
With so many people living longer, the fear of outliving your money becomes a reality for many of us. Will I be a financial burden? Will I outlive my money? How will I be remembered? My name is Neil Himmelstein, president of Main Street Planning Group. Please contact me by visiting mainstreetplanninggroup.com. That's mainstreetplanninggroup.com, or call 631-647-4694. I will introduce you to strategies that will guarantee you will not outlive your money, that can guarantee you will not be a burden on your loved ones. Through a collaborative approach, we will uncover solutions that offer tax-efficient strategies, lifetime income, and legacy planning, choice, organization, direction, and education. That is the code we stand behind. Contact mainstreetplanninggroup.com. That's mainstreetplanninggroup.com, or call 631-647-4694. And listen to me every Friday at 3 p.m. as I host the Main Street Code for Financial Success, right here on 103.9 LI News Radio. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Main Street Code for Financial Success. I'm your host, Neil Himmelstein. I'm here every Friday at 3 o'clock. If you miss an episode, you can catch me on Spotify or on Apple at your favorite podcast, or on YouTube, or at the mainstreetcode.com. When we talk about our code, we talk about choice, organization, direction, and education. We help hundreds of advisors across the United States, whether they're insurance professionals, accountants, attorneys, mortgage people, and really help design with not only their insurance plans and overall planning. Insurance is a total piece of your plan. We handle all the protection products, life, disability, long-term care, and annuities. And we're completely independent. We represent over 30 different insurance carriers, and where their carrier may not do something, or they need a specific design or problem with their insurance policy, they reach out to us. Today, I'd like to dedicate my program to my mother. Today would have been my mother's 100th birthday. It's quite a thing, and I was just reminded of that, and I'm just like thinking about my mom. And my mom was the ultimate caregiver that that's out there, and a lot of moms and a lot of people face this caregiving dilemma. She raised 5 children. I'm the baby of 5 boys. All 5 got college educations. That was a goal of my parents, that all 5 of us would go to college and graduate, and most of us went on to advanced degrees after that. So a real tribute to my mom. And in the last 10 years of her life, she spent taking care of my dad and her mom. So not only, I would say mostly my dad, who had disintegrated discs in his back and his neck, and gradually couldn't walk. I mean, my dad, he was a great tennis player. He played from the time he was 20 to 65. Played every day. Very athletic, very, veterinarian, worked really hard. But as time aged on, he had disintegrated discs in his neck and his back, and he virtually, went from, walking to wheelchair to further degradation, because it just happened, and she was there to take care of him, and that's a big deal. So financially, my dad was forced to retire, not because of anything. He had great passion for what he did, but his hands, he had major arthritis in his back and his neck, and he just physically couldn't do the job anymore. Mentally, he still kept up until he passed at age 89. So mentally, he kept going, and, he lost his eyesight because of, degenerative eyesight, and still he would listen to books and read books and keep up with his profession even till the day he passed. But my mom, the last 10 years, wheeled him around, had to get a handicap van, drive him around, and the caregiving aspect of my dad really deteriorated my mom's life. My mom passed 6 or 7 years before my dad, after taking care of him and taking care of the kids. And, a lot of that, we don't think about all the devotion and dedication she did to her family and her life, like many people do. In today's world, if you're a caregiver for a parent, and my wife, by the way, had to caregave for her father while having 2 young kids. It's very expensive in the sense of, luckily, my wife, had to take care of 2 young kids and take care of her dad, running back and forth and helping him while I was working. I mean, it was just a very difficult time in our lives. And, I don't know the struggles that everybody goes through, but, for many people, and typically, most of the caregivers happen to be women in our society, just by rationale, but it certainly could be men. They have the burden of maybe taking care of a parent while still dealing with taking care of their children. And when you have 2 working spouses, whether it's, and that person has to stop work and take care of their mom or take care of their dad or move them into the house or whatever, they all of a sudden have to leave their work and possibly not have a promotion and not make money anymore and not contribute to the 401k and not do all these things. Financially, it's a burden to them. Not only the person who's sick, but it's the caregiver who is the biggest penalty. It's the caregiver that is suffering. So it's the caregiver. It was my mom who passed away taking care of my dad because of all the stress and worry and work on her. Not the person who was actually in a wheelchair. And that brings me to something we talk about, which is long-term care. Long-term care is a critical component in people's lives. What is long-term care? Long-term care is if you need sufficient things, whether you can't feed yourself, to transport yourself, you can't do all the activities of daily living that you could, and people don't address it at the point of what it really does, not just to them, but to everyone else in the family, and how it impacts everybody. And after the age of 65, and we use that as a barometer because that was always the retirement age. Of course, that has changed dramatically over the years. But after the age of 65, 2 out of 3 people, that's over 70%, will need some sort of care in their home, in a nursing home or something, because whether it's due to cognitive, mental situation, or physical. And believe it or not, over half of the long-term care claims, we're going to talk about that in a minute, due to cognitive issues. We just don't, our brains just don't, keep going. I mean, we're machines basically, and Alzheimer's and brain dysfunction becomes a real issue as we get older. We lose our lack of judgment, maybe driving skills, reflex skills. All these tend to decline as we get older. So it's a big problem. And Medicare and medical insurance only covers what they call medically necessary. It doesn't cover if you need somebody to come in your home and take care of you. It doesn't pay for the fact that maybe your daughter or son has to take care of you and maybe quit their job to take care of you, or vice versa. You have to maybe cut down on your hours or not participate in your 401k or do something to take care of a parent or a brother or a sister. And at the same time, you have those situations for those maybe a little younger that may be facing this dilemma with their parent and also raising children. And how that impacts the children is tremendous. So what is the solution to this world problem, other than paying out of pocket, is to buy some sort of protection what we call long-term care insurance. And what long-term care insurance does, it pays you so that if you need it yourself, you need some kind of care, that it will pay for that caregiving, so that it would relieve, let's say, a caregiver like my mom of having to take care of my dad, so that she could work or she could have a life. That's why we look at long-term care options. And long-term care insurance has evolved into a multitude of ways of protecting yourself. And you're listening to the Main Street Code for Financial Success. I'm your host, Neil Himmelstein. I can be reached at 631-647-4694. To all of you caregivers out there, my heart's out to you. There are solutions for you, and there are solutions prior to things happening. And that's what we want to discuss further right after this break. Thank you. Welcome back to the Main Street Code for Financial Success. Before the commercial break, we were talking about my mom. It's her 100th birthday if she was alive, and I really want to dedicate my show to her and to all the caregivers out there. My mom was a caregiver for 5 children that she put through college, her mother, and my father in her later years for many years, which led to her personal health crisis and led to her death, quite candidly. And taking care of him created bad health for her. So what are the solutions so this doesn't happen to you? And one of the solutions is some sort of plan for long-term care. I hate to talk about product, but really a plan. So the insurance industry, the government has a plan for you if you impoverish yourself taking care of, and that's called Medicaid. And that's like, it's welfare for the elderly. It's when you run out of your resources, Medicaid kicks in and helps you cover some of those expenses. They are the number one provider of what we call long-term care insurance in the country. That's the government. Now, Medicaid is probably it's funded by both the federal and state governments, so your tax dollars go a lot to Medicaid. That's one of their biggest expenses, and one they can't control, by the way. The problem is we are living longer and longer, and we are prolonging life because of medical science. It's a known fact that, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, you had a heart attack. Next day, the odds are you weren't alive. Today, they can, put a balloon in you and blow up an artery and fix you and send you home the next day. And, with some plans in New York, maybe they might even do it in your car. It's like crazy. But you're in and out in a day. It's like insane. And that used to be, okay, that was it. Or you had a stroke and it was debilitating and you can't do anything anymore, whether it affects your sight, your hearing, your ability to talk and communicate, and or your mobility. Strokes can be debilitating. So one of the solutions that we talk about is looking into the future. You have a 70% chance. That's more than 2 out of 3 chance that you're going to need some kind of help. So why recommend you insure it? I mean, if I knew that my house was burning down, I had a 70% chance that my house was going to burn down, you'd better make sure I'd insure it for fire. That's absolutely true. If I knew, and I'm telling you right now, this is the numbers. That's more than 2 out of 3. Now, what I also discussed is it doesn't just affect the person who needs long-term care. It affects the spouse, the children, the grandchildren. Everyone is affected, not just financially when someone needs care, but the emotional toll is tremendous. I mean, it's horrendous. Listen, if I had to stay home and take care of my wife all day long and not go to work and do my thing, that would ruin me mentally. Honestly, I know it would. That's why I have coverage for that. Okay, I can't do that. And if she was to take care of me all day, it would drive her insane, as well as reduce her freedom to go out and go shopping and do, the daily tasks of life. So just think how debilitating it is if I need care or she needs care. It's debilitating either way, and both ways, if either of us need care. So if you don't protect yourself with some sort of program, an idea, and giving away your assets so that you impoverish yourself is not an answer to rely on the government. Because if you rely on the government, Medicaid, as the number one solution, which a lot of attorneys advocate, is here, let's get rid of your assets, and here, we know that you're going to need care, and let's get rid of your assets and work about the look back and this and that. I mean, that's a possible solution, but if the government is in charge of your long-term care, believe me, they're going to cut corners. They're going to tell you how many days you can have help and where you can have help, and God forbid you need to go to the bad place or a nursing home, and they'll pick where you go, where it's cheapest for them and most convenient for them, the government, somebody that's deciding how you're going to live the rest of your years. I don't advocate relying on that. So we advocate for long-term care insurance. It's a huge deal. Now, the long-term care insurance industry has stressed and changed dramatically over the years. Long-term care insurance used to be so prevalent and so more obtainable than people believe it is now. It is still obtainable, but you have to plan in advance. It's obtainable, but they've gotten more restrictive, and the reason it's gotten more restrictive is because they never imagined when they came out with long-term care insurance that how many people that bought it actually used it. The usage was tremendous. And they thought back in the day, and it was true when long-term care insurance came out, you had a long-term care incident, and within 2 or 3 years, the odds were that you didn't make it. Now, you have a long-term care situation where you can't perform your activities of daily living because, let's say, you have a cognitive event and you have early onset of Alzheimer's or late onset of Alzheimer's. That goes on for years. Average 8 years, 10 years, not 2 years, not 3 years. So you're going to need a lot of care. So the numbers did not work out for the insurance companies. They really messed up. They thought people would buy this policy. It got too expensive. They're going to drop it. Nobody dropped it. They anticipated people would drop this coverage, and they never anticipated their claims history. So the industry shrunk. So the standalone long-term care policies are still obtainable, but they're fewer, and their underwriting, which their qualification to get, is much more stringent. So you want to plan when you're younger, not wait until your house is on fire. Because you wait till your house is on fire, it's too late to buy fire insurance. I hope that makes sense to everybody. You have to get it prior to you having situations. So now it's evolved so they have these policies that we call them hybrid policies. That a lot of life insurance companies said, hey, we're going to help address this and develop a hybrid life policy that will cover you if you need long-term care. And if you don't need long-term care, you have the death benefit, which is going to provide for your family. We do a lot of business with this kind of combination plan. So it's really a life insurance plan. And if you pass away, now it costs about 10% more to get one of these life insurance plans. But what it does is you would pay for the early, let's say you bought a $500,000 life insurance plan or long-term care plan. And what would happen is if you need long-term care, it would prepay that $500,000 out. And whatever's left over, if you only used $50,000 or $100,000, the other would be left behind to your beneficiary, your spouse or your children, or whoever your beneficiary is. So that's how they work. The true long-term care, what we call them riders to these policies, cost about 10% more than a regular permanent life insurance policy. It's not a lot, okay? And you know that you have it there. So even if you think, I'm going to be the 1 out of 3 or the 1 out of 2.7 9 or whatever the number comes to, that's not going to need care. Okay, I'm going to be that lucky person. And I'm not, but you know what? If I don't need it, I'm glad my family's going to get this money. And that's why these hybrid plans have become so popular and are so good. I still love the standalone plans. I consider it's like buying a stereo. You know, people ask me all the time, what's better, have a standalone or have this? Well, it's better to have separate speakers, a separate tuner, separate this and that when I sell stereo. Yes, ultimately. But, you know, if you have restricted budget and everything else and you're planning, sometimes the combination, the whole stereo component system works. Nowadays, everything's different. You know, you can get stuff online and stream, but that's the evolution of long-term care, as well as many other things. You've been listening to the Main Street Code for Financial Success. I'm your host, Neil Himmelstein. I'm here every Friday at 3. If you want to reach out to me, I'm at 631-647-4694, or visit me at themainstreetcode.com. Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of this station, JVC Broadcasting Management, or its sponsors.